Ladies and gentlemen, January is not just another month on the calendar. January is a threshold. It is the moment where yesterday releases its grip and tomorrow waits for your decision. January 28, 26 is standing before you like an open door. Doors do not move on their own. You must step through them. You don't need a new year because the old one was easy. You need a new year because you survived what should have broken you. You carried burdens you never announced. You fought battles you never posted. You endured seasons where progress was silent and pain was loud, and yet you are still here. A reset is not denial. A reset is acknowledgement. It is the courage to say, what worked before cannot carry me forward. Some habits served you once but now suffocate you. Some relationships once felt safe but now keep you small. Some routines gave you comfort but stole your momentum. January 2026 is asking you one question. Are you brave enough to let go of what is familiar to receive what is necessary? Reset your mind. You cannot enter a new season with old thinking. You cannot expect fresh results while recycling defeated thoughts. The way you talk to yourself matters. The way you see yourself matters. Stop rehearsing your failures and start declaring your future. Your thoughts are the soil. Whatever you plant there will grow. A restart is not starting from zero. It is starting from wisdom. You are not behind. You are informed. You are not late. You are refined. Every delay taught you something discipline could not. Every disappointment trained your discernment. When you restart with vision, with clarity, with boundaries, and with purpose. Stop punishing yourself for not becoming everything at once. Growth is a process, not a performance. Restart with consistency, not pressure. Restart with obedience, not emotion. Restart with structure, not excuses. Small steps taken daily will outrun massive intentions delayed forever. Because distraction is the enemy of destiny. You cannot chase everything and fulfill anything. Refocus your energy, refocus your time, refocus your priorities. Everyone does not deserve access to you. Every opportunity is not an assignment. Every noise does not require a response. Refocus on what matters most in this season. Not last year's goals, not someone else's timeline. This season's instruction. There is a grace available in January 2026, but it responds to alignment, not business. When your focus sharpens, your strength multiplies. This is the year you stop living in reaction mode and start moving with intention. This is the year you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. This is the year you stop negotiating with fear and start walking in authority. January 2026 is not just another page on the calendar. It is not merely the first month of a new year marked by fresh plans, resolutions, or temporary motivation. January 2026 is a threshold. Threshold is not a destination, it is a crossing point. It is the space between what has been and what is about to be. It is the moment where the past loosens its grip and the future waits for permission. And thresholds demand decisions. When you stand at a threshold, you cannot remain neutral. You are either going to step forward or retreat backward. Standing still is an illusion because time keeps moving whether you do or not. January 2026 is that moment where life is asking you to choose intentionally instead of drifting accidentally. This is not a month that exists to be endured. It exists to be entered with awareness. The reason January feels heavy for so many people is because it carries the weight of reflection. It forces you to look back before you move forward. It exposes the gap between who you said you would become and who you actually showed up as. It reminds you of promises you made in quiet moments that never made it into consistent action. But this reflection is not meant to shame you. It is meant to awaken you. A threshold does not judge what you are carrying. It only asks whether what you are carrying belongs in the next season. Some things cannot cross with you. Some mindsets have expiration dates. Some habits were only meant to help you survive a season, not succeed in the next one. January 2026 is not asking you to be perfect. It is asking you to be honest. You cannot cross a threshold dragging yesterday's disappointments like luggage. Regret makes the load too heavy. Shame slows your steps. Guilt clouds your vision. A threshold requires release before it allows entrance. This is why January often feels uncomfortable. It is exposing what must be laid down before progress can begin. January 2026 stands between your history and your potential. Behind you are lessons learned, pain endured, and battles fought. Ahead of you is growth that demands maturity, responsibility, and courage. A threshold is where preparation meets opportunity. It is where you realize that wanting more is not enough. You must become more. Many people treat January like a motivational surge, but motivation fades. Threshold does not respond to emotion, it responds to alignment. You cannot cross into a new level of life with an old level of thinking. What once felt normal must now be questioned. What once felt comfortable must now be challenged. Growth always begins by making the familiar feel unfamiliar. January 2026 is also a spiritual threshold. It is a moment of recalibration where your values are examined and your priorities are reordered. Asks you what truly matters when the noise is stripped away, not what impresses people, not what looks successful from the outside, what sustains you when no one is applauding. At a threshold, distractions become dangerous. This is not the time to scatter your energy or chase every opportunity. This is the time to become deliberate. Focus determines direction, direction determines destination. January 2026 is calling you to stop reacting and start responding with intention. A threshold also reveals responsibility. You can no longer blame what happened 5 years ago for why you are still standing in the same place. You can no longer wait for permission from people who are just as confused as you once were. At a threshold, ownership replaces excuses. You begin to understand that your future will require your participation. This month is not demanding that you transform everything overnight. Thresholds are not crossed in leaps, they are crossed in steps. Small, intentional steps taken consistently matter more than dramatic declarations made once. January 2026 is not impressed by what you promise, it responds to what you practice. There will be fear at the threshold. Fear is not a sign that you are unprepared, it is a sign that what you are about to do matters. Fear always shows up when comfort is being challenged. The difference now is that fear does not get to lead. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move forward despite it. Threshold is sacred because it separates who you were from who you are becoming. It is the moment where excuses lose their power and vision gains its voice. January 2026 is inviting you to rewrite the narrative, not by denying your past, but by learning from it. Everything you survived has prepared you for what you are about to step into. Do not rush through this month. Thresholds are not meant to be sprinted across. They are meant to be honored. Pay attention to what is stirring within you. Pay attention to what no longer fits. Pay attention to what feels heavy and what feels alive. Clarity often comes quietly. January 2026 is not asking you to prove anything to anyone. It is asking you to align with what you know deep inside is required. This is the month where you stop living on autopilot and start living with awareness. Where intention replaces impulse. Where discipline replaces emotion. Once you cross a threshold, there is no return to ignorance. You cannot unsee what you now understand. You cannot unknow what you now recognize. January 2026 will mark you, not because everything will instantly change, because you will. And when you step forward, you will realize that the threshold was never about time. It was about readiness. Not readiness to feel confident, but readiness to be committed. January 2026 is not just a month. It is the doorway to a different way of living. Step through it with purpose. Survival itself qualifies you for a reset, not achievement, not applause, not recognition. Survival, the simple, overlooked fact that you are still standing after everything you have been through is more than enough evidence that a new beginning is not only allowed, it is deserved. You do not need permission from anyone to start again. You have already earned it by making it through what should have taken you out. Too often, people believe resets are reserved for those who succeeded, for those who did things right the first time, for those who never stumbled or strayed. Life does not work that way. Growth is not a straight line, and strength is rarely formed in comfort. People who most need a reset are often the ones who carried the heaviest loads in silence, who endured seasons where quitting felt logical but continuing became an act of courage. Survival is proof of resilience. It means you found a way to breathe when the pressure was suffocating. It means you adapted when the plan collapsed. It means you woke up on days when your heart felt heavy and your hope felt thin, and you kept moving anyway. You may not have moved fast, and you may not have moved confidently, but you moved That matters more than you realize. There were moments when you didn't know how things would work out, moments when you questioned your own strength, moments when the future felt uncertain and the present felt overwhelming. Yet somehow you endured. You adjusted. You learned. Survival is not passive, it is active resistance against giving up. And anyone who has resisted quitting has earned the right to reset their life. A reset is not an erasure of the past. It is an integration of what you have learned. You are not starting from scratch. You are starting from experience. Every disappointment taught you discernment. Every delay taught you patience. Every loss taught you what truly matters. Survival refined you in ways success never could. When you survive something difficult, you emerge changed. You see life differently. You value peace more deeply. You recognize the cost of chaos. You understand that time is not guaranteed and energy is precious. These insights are not weaknesses, they are qualifications. They prepare you to rebuild with intention instead of impulse. Many people disqualify themselves from new beginnings because they focus on what they lost instead of what they gained. They replay their mistakes instead of honoring their endurance. But survival is not a small thing. It is evidence that there is still purpose attached to your life. You would not have been preserved if there was nothing left for you to do. A reset does not mean pretending the pain never happened. It means refusing to let the pain define the rest of your story. Care enough, you can acknowledge the scars without reopening the wounds. You can honor the struggle without living in it. Survival gives you perspective. It teaches you what is worth carrying forward and what must be left behind. There is a quiet strength that comes from surviving hard seasons. It humbles you. It grounds you. It strips away illusions and forces you to confront what is real. You stop chasing approval and start seeking alignment. You stop living for appearances and start living for peace. This clarity is the foundation of a meaningful reset. Survival also teaches compassion toward others and toward yourself. You learn that everyone is fighting something unseen. You become slower to judge and quicker to understand. Most importantly, you learn to forgive yourself. You realize that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. That realization is liberating. A reset is an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that your past pain will not dictate your future direction. It is the decision to rebuild with wisdom instead of resentment. Survival has already given you the strength to endure. A reset allows you to redirect that strength toward growth. You are allowed to want more, even after you barely made it through. You are allowed to dream again, even after disappointment. You are allowed to hope, even if hope once hurt you. Survival does not make you fragile. It makes you capable. There will always be voices that remind you of where you failed, what you lost, or how long it took. Those voices were not with you in the darkest moments. They did not carry the weight you carried. They did not fight the battles you fought. Their opinions do not outrank your experience. Survival means you are still in the process. It means the story is not over. It means there are chapters yet to be written. A reset is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about honoring what you have lived through and choosing to move forward with intention. Survival itself qualifies you for a reset, not because you are perfect, but because you are persistent. Not because you never fell, but because you got back up. Not because you have all the answers, because you are still willing to learn. A true reset requires releasing familiar but limiting patterns. Not because those patterns were always wrong, because they have finished their assignment in your life. What once protected you may now restrict you. What once helped you survive may now be preventing you from growing. And the hardest things to release are not the things that hurt us openly, but things that feel safe while quietly keeping us small. Familiar patterns are powerful because they are comfortable. They don't challenge us. They don't demand courage. They allow us to function without thinking deeply. But comfort can become a cage when it replaces growth. You can be faithful to routines that no longer serve your future. You can be loyal to mindsets that were only meant for a past season. Familiarity creates the illusion of control, even when it is costing you progress. Many limiting patterns were formed during survival seasons. They were coping mechanisms, not life strategies. Avoidance, silence, emotional distance, procrastination, people pleasing, overworking, or staying busy to avoid reflection. These behaviors may have helped you endure chaos, disappointment, or uncertainty. Survival tools are not always success tools. A reset asks you to examine what you learned in pain and decide what deserves to stay. The danger is not in having patterns. The danger is in never questioning them. When patterns go unchallenged, they become prisons. You repeat the same reactions, track the same outcomes, and wonder why nothing changes. Growth begins the moment you become curious about your habits instead of defensive about them. Releasing familiar patterns feels threatening because it requires trust. It means admitting that what you know is no longer enough to get you where you want to go. It means stepping into uncertainty without guarantees. Resets are not built on guarantees. They are built on faith, intention, and willingness. One of the most limiting patterns people carry is the habit of thinking small. You shrink your expectations to protect yourself from disappointment. You lower your standards to avoid pressure. You convince yourself that less is safer. But safety without growth becomes stagnation. You were not designed to merely maintain, you were designed to expand. Another familiar pattern is emotional attachment to the past, replaying old conversations, reliving old failures, rehearsing old pain. The mind clings to what it knows, even if what it knows is painful. But holding on does not heal you, it traps you. A reset requires mental release before external change can occur. Limiting patterns also show up in relationships. Staying connected to people who reinforce who you used to be instead of who you are becoming. Accepting dynamics that drain your energy because they are predictable. Confusing loyalty with self-betrayal. Growth often requires redefining access. That can feel lonely before it feels liberating. There are patterns of speech that limit you. The way you talk about yourself, the way you label your abilities, the way you casually dismiss your potential with humor or humility. Words shape identity. If you keep speaking from a place of limitation, you will keep living from one. A reset demands intentional discomfort. It asks you to interrupt autopilot, to pause before reacting, to respond differently than you always have. New results require new responses. You cannot expect transformation while protecting habits that resist change. Releasing familiar patterns does not mean erasing your past. It means honoring it without being controlled by it. You can appreciate what a season taught you without recreating its limitations. Wisdom is knowing what to keep and what to release. This process requires honesty. Not the surface level honesty we show others, the deeper honesty we owe ourselves, the willingness to admit this no longer works, to stop blaming circumstances and start adjusting behavior, to recognize that freedom begins where denial ends. There will be resistance. Your mind will argue for comfort. Your emotions will seek the familiar. Your fear will present worst-case scenarios. But discomfort is not danger. Unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. Often it means growth is near. Reset is not about changing everything at once. It is about making intentional shifts, replacing reaction with reflection, replacing fear with curiosity, replacing avoidance with engagement. Small changes, practiced consistently, break even the strongest patterns. When you release what limits you, space opens for what aligns with you. New thinking, healthier relationships, stronger boundaries, clearer purpose. But none of these can enter a life that is already overcrowded with outdated habits. Familiar patterns promise stability, but they often deliver stagnation. A reset offers uncertainty, but it carries potential. Growth always asks for risk before reward. You cannot step into a new season while clinging to the blueprint of the old one. Releasing familiar but limiting patterns is not an act of rejection. It is an act of respect for your future, your capacity, and your calling. You are not dishonoring who you were by changing. You are honoring who you are becoming. Renewing the mind is essential for lasting change because every transformation begins internally before it ever appears externally. Long before habits shift, relationships improve, or circumstances change, something must first happen in the way you think. The mind is the control center of your life. It interprets experiences, shapes decisions, and quietly determines the direction of your future. Without a renewed mind, change may start it will never last. Many people attempt to change their lives by altering behavior alone. They set goals, adopt routines, make promises fueled by emotion or urgency. But behavior is downstream from belief. If the thinking that produced the old behavior remains untouched, the old behavior will eventually return. This is why so many cycles repeat. The environment changes, but the mindset stays the same. Renewed mind does not mean positive thinking in a shallow sense. It is not denial of reality or pretending pain never existed. Renewal is a deep, intentional process of replacing distorted thinking with truth, clarity, and wisdom. It requires awareness, honesty, and patience. You must first recognize the patterns of thought that are shaping your choices, even when those thoughts feel normal. Many unrenewed thoughts are formed in difficult seasons. Fear-based thinking develops when safety feels uncertain. Scarcity thinking develops when resources feel limited. Defensive thinking develops when trust has been broken. These mental patterns are understandable, but they are not meant to lead you forever. What once protected you can later imprison you if it goes unexamined. The mind holds memories, interpretations, and assumptions. Two people can experience the same event and walk away with completely different beliefs. Over time, those beliefs harden into mental frameworks that quietly dictate what feels possible, acceptable, or unreachable. Renewing the mind means challenging those frameworks instead of submitting to them. Lasting change requires new perspectives. You cannot solve new problems with old thinking. You cannot build a future with beliefs that were shaped by past wounds. Renewal invites you to ask difficult questions. Why do I react this way? Why do I expect the worst? Why do I doubt myself even when evidence says otherwise? These questions are not meant to condemn you, but to free you. One of the greatest barriers to renewal is familiarity. Even unhealthy thoughts feel safe because they are known. The mind prefers predictability over possibility. This is why people often return to negative self-talk, limiting beliefs, or destructive cycles. They may be painful, but they are familiar. Renewal requires the courage to interrupt that familiarity. Renewed mind learns to pause. Instead of reacting automatically, it reflects intentionally. Instead of assuming, it evaluates. Instead of rehearsing fear, it seeks understanding. This pause is powerful because it creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, choice is born. Renewal is not instantaneous, it is a daily discipline. Thoughts do not change once, they change through repetition and reinforcement. Just as unhealthy thinking was learned over time, healthy thinking must also be cultivated over time. This requires consistency, not perfection. Renewing the mind also involves redefining identity. How you see yourself influences how you live. If you believe you are broken, you will live cautiously. If you believe you are incapable, you will avoid challenge. If you believe you are unworthy, you will settle for less. Renewed mind begins to align identity with truth rather than trauma. Your internal dialogue matters more than most external voices. You may be surrounded by encouragement, but if your inner voice remains critical or hopeless, that voice will dominate. Renewal teaches you to monitor what you tell yourself when no one else is listening. A renewed mind changes how you interpret setbacks. Instead of seeing them as confirmation of failure, you begin to see them as information. Instead of personalizing disappointment, you analyze it. This shift prevents discouragement from becoming destiny. Renewal also strengthens emotional regulation. When the mind is grounded, emotions become signals rather than rulers. You still feel deeply, but feelings no longer dictate decisions. This balance allows you to act with wisdom even under pressure. Lasting change demands alignment between thought and action. When the mind is renewed, discipline feels purposeful rather than forced. Obedience becomes intentional rather than reactive. You begin to act from conviction, not compulsion. Greatest proof of renewal is sustainability. You do not just start strong, you continue steadily. You do not rely on motivation, you rely on mindset. You do not collapse under resistance, you adapt and persevere. Renewing the mind does not erase struggle, but it transforms how you move through it. It replaces helplessness with agency, confusion with clarity, fear with discernment. Lasting change is not the result of trying harder. It is the result of thinking differently. And when the mind is renewed, everything else follows. Restarting means beginning with wisdom, not regret. It is the conscious decision to move forward without being anchored to what went wrong. Many people approach a restart carrying the heavy weight of self-blame, replaying old mistakes as if punishment will somehow produce progress. But regret does not prepare you for a better future, only traps you in a painful loop of hindsight. Wisdom, on the other hand, takes what you have lived through and transforms it into direction. A true restart is not an emotional impulse. It is not a desperate attempt to undo the past. It is a deliberate act of clarity. Wisdom does not deny failure, but it refuses to let failure become an identity. You are not the sum of your worst decisions. You are the sum of what you learned from them. When you restart with wisdom, you move forward informed, refined, and grounded. Regret focuses on what cannot be changed. It keeps your attention locked on missed opportunities, wrong turns, and words you wish you could take back. While reflection is healthy, dwelling in regret drains energy without producing growth. Wisdom asks a different question. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" wisdom asks, "What did this teach me?" That shift changes everything. Beginning again with wisdom means you no longer rush. You understand the cost of haste because you have lived with its consequences. You move with intention, not impulse. You make decisions slowly, thoughtfully, and with awareness of long-term impact. Wisdom tempers excitement with discernment and ambition with patience. Restart shaped by wisdom also comes with boundaries. Where regret keeps doors open out of guilt or fear, wisdom knows when to close them. You recognize patterns that once trapped you and refuse to repeat them. You learn to say no without explanation and yes without hesitation when alignment is clear. This is not hardness, it is maturity. Wisdom allows you to forgive yourself without excusing behavior. You acknowledge where you fell short, take responsibility, and then release the shame. Shame paralyzes, but responsibility empowers. Restarting with wisdom means carrying accountability without carrying condemnation. There is a quiet confidence that comes from restarting with wisdom. You no longer need to prove yourself. You are not trying to outrun your past or impress an audience. You are focused on building something sustainable, not something that looks good temporarily. Wisdom values longevity over speed. Regret often causes people to overcorrect. They swing from one extreme to another, hoping to avoid past mistakes. Wisdom creates balance. It integrates lessons without creating fear-based reactions. You do not abandon your identity to avoid repeating history. You refine it. A wise restart also honors timing. You stop forcing outcomes. You understand that preparation matters more than urgency. Wisdom recognizes that just because something is possible does not mean it is ready. This patience protects you from unnecessary setbacks. Restarting with wisdom changes how you view failure. Failure becomes information, not condemnation. It becomes a teacher, not a sentence. This perspective keeps you resilient. When challenges arise, you do not spiral into self-doubt. You adjust, learn, and continue. Wisdom also reshapes your expectations. You no longer expect perfection from yourself or others. You expect progress. You understand that growth includes missteps and learning curves. This realistic expectation prevents discouragement and burnout. One of the greatest freedoms of restarting with wisdom is emotional stability. Regret keeps emotions raw and reactive. Wisdom creates emotional regulation. You still feel deeply, but you are no longer controlled by past pain. You respond rather than react. A wise restart is built on truth. You stop telling yourself stories that excuse stagnation or justify avoidance. You face reality with clarity and courage. This honesty strengthens your foundation. Restarting with wisdom does not mean you wait until you feel ready. It means you begin when you are prepared to learn, adjust, and remain consistent. Wisdom understands that readiness is built in motion, not in waiting. As you restart, you carry insight, not bitterness. You carry discernment, not fear. You carry clarity, not confusion. Wisdom lightens the load because it removes unnecessary emotional baggage. This kind of restart may not feel dramatic, but it is powerful. It is steady, intentional, and sustainable. It may not attract immediate attention, but it produces lasting results. Restarting means beginning with wisdom, not regret, because wisdom builds futures while regret replays the past. And when you choose wisdom, every step forward becomes purposeful. Growth happens through consistency, not pressure. This is one of the greatest truths many people overlook because we live in a culture that glorifies instant results, dramatic transformations, overnight success. We are conditioned to believe that to grow, we must strain, push beyond our limits every single day, and force outcomes that are not yet ready to manifest. But pressure alone does not create transformation. Pressure may produce temporary spikes, short bursts of achievement, or fleeting moments of productivity, but lasting growth is forged through something far quieter, far more disciplined consistency. Consistency is the repeated, intentional application of effort over time. It does not seek applause. It does not demand recognition. It does not even feel dramatic in the moment. Yet, while pressure burns quickly and often leaves exhaustion in its wake, consistency compounds quietly. It builds momentum, shapes character, and transforms ordinary efforts into extraordinary results. One small action, repeated daily, multiplies over months and years into a life far beyond what pressure alone could achieve. Many people confuse pressure with urgency. They wake up in the morning and feel compelled to prove themselves immediately. They chase big goals with massive bursts of energy, hoping to force success before it is naturally ready. This is exhausting. It leads to burnout, disappointment, and frustration. Growth is not a sprint. Growth is a marathon. It is a rhythm, not a race. Consistency teaches patience and persistence, while pressure teaches desperation. Consider the power of small, repeated actions, writing a page a day, practicing a skill for 15 minutes, responding to opportunities deliberately, investing in relationships consistently. These may seem insignificant in the moment. They are not glamorous. They do not create headlines. Yet over time, they reshape you. One day, months, or years later, you realize that your life is no longer recognizable because you stayed faithful to the small disciplines. Even when the world demanded speed and spectacle, pressure, on the other hand, often produces only performance, not transformation. When you operate under constant pressure, your mind and body are in survival mode. You may meet a deadline or complete a task. Your growth is often superficial. It is reactionary, not intentional. True development, mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, requires a steady pace, rhythm that allows integration of learning, reflection, and adaptation. Consistency nurtures depth. Pressure promotes surface-level results. Consistency also fosters mastery. Skills are not perfected overnight. Talents are not fully realized in a week. Habits are not formed in a month. Mastery is built through repetition, through incremental improvement, through showing up even when the motivation is absent. Pressure may force you to act. Consistency trains you to endure. It creates resilience. It develops patience and fortitude. Teaches you to respect the process rather than idolize the outcome. The danger of pressure is that it focuses on scarcity. Pressure says, you have to do it all now or you will fail. Pressure convinces you that if something is not immediate, it is worthless. Consistency, however, operates from abundance. It understands that growth is a long game, that time is a collaborator, and that small, steady progress accumulates into monumental achievement. It doesn't demand instant perfection. It honors incremental improvement. Consistency also shapes identity. When you show up daily, even imperfectly, you reinforce who you are becoming. Every repeated action reinforces a belief in your capability. Every faithful step builds confidence that cannot be borrowed from motivation or external approval. Growth through consistency is internalized. It becomes part of your character, your habits, and your lifestyle. Growth under pressure, however, depends on external validation. When the pressure ends, so does the performance. One of the most beautiful things about consistency is that it works even in adversity. When life is chaotic, when circumstances seem unfair, motivation is low, consistent effort is what keeps you moving forward. It doesn't rely on feeling inspired or having ideal conditions. It relies on discipline, commitment, and the understanding that transformation is cumulative. Pressure may disappear when circumstances shift. Consistency endures. Consistency also teaches humility. It humbles you because you realize that you are part of a larger process. You cannot force every outcome. You cannot control every variable. You learn to focus on your effort rather than the immediate results. This mindset prevents despair when growth feels slow. Pressure, in contrast, often leaves you resentful, blaming yourself or circumstances when immediate results are not achieved. Consistency builds patience, endurance, and trust in the process. Another benefit of consistent effort is that it generates momentum. Small victories repeated daily compound over time. Progress you cannot see week to week becomes obvious over months and years. Momentum reduces resistance and makes growth feel inevitable. Pressure can create temporary bursts of energy, but momentum is a byproduct of consistent action, not frantic effort. Growth through consistency also allows for reflection and refinement. When you operate under relentless pressure, you often miss lessons embedded in the journey. You are too focused on outcomes to notice patterns, mistakes, or opportunities for improvement. Consistency creates space to observe, adjust, and refine. Each day of deliberate effort is also a day of learning, reinforcing both skill and insight. Consistency nurtures self-trust. When you repeatedly show up for yourself, you internalize a sense of reliability. You learn that progress is not dependent on motivation or luck, but on your own commitment. Pressure may push you temporarily. Only consistency teaches you that you can rely on yourself over the long haul. Ultimately, growth is a process of transformation, not performance. Performance under pressure may impress temporarily, but transformation under consistency endures. It is steady, invisible, often unnoticed until one day you realize how far you have come. The seeds planted through daily discipline, intentional effort, faithful repetition blossom into a life marked by excellence, resilience, and impact. So if you want lasting growth, stop trying to force it through pressure. Stop believing that intensity alone will produce transformation. Stop waiting for bursts of motivation or dramatic breakthroughs. Start showing up daily. Start being faithful in small tasks. Start being patient with yourself while remaining persistent. Growth happens quietly, consistently, and intentionally. And when you remain consistent, pressure becomes unnecessary because you are no longer chasing results. You are building a foundation that can sustain them. Growth through consistency is slow, deliberate, and disciplined, but it is unstoppable. It is the quiet engine that turns effort into excellence, repetition into mastery, and patience into fulfillment. Pressure may create noise, but consistency creates legacy. Distraction is the enemy of purpose. It is subtle, persistent, often disguised as opportunity, entertainment, or urgency. It does not announce itself as a thief. Instead, it creeps in, whispering in your ear that everything else is just as important, just as urgent, just as necessary. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, distraction steals the most precious resource you have, your attention. Purpose requires focus, direction, and clarity, and distraction is the force that constantly pulls those away from you. To live a life of impact, to fulfill the calling you carry, you must recognize distraction for what it is and refuse to allow it to dominate your time, energy, or thoughts. Distraction is everywhere. It is not just social media, email, or noise in your environment. It can be in your relationships, in your overcommitment, or even in your own mind. Thrives on business, on constant motion that masquerades as progress. It convinces you that being active is the same as being productive. Doing everything is the same as doing what matters. Purpose cannot survive in the chaos of unfocused action. Purpose requires intentionality, and distraction is the direct opposite of intention. The danger of distraction is that it is seductive. It offers immediate gratification. It promises relief from discomfort. It tells you, do this now. It will be easier, faster, or more enjoyable. But what it steals in return is priceless. Your ability to think deeply, to act decisively, to invest fully in the pursuits that align with your destiny. Distraction thrives on short-term appeal and long-term cost. It erodes progress silently, till one day you wake up and realize that you are farther from your goals than you thought, not because you failed to try, because you tried everything else instead. Purpose is not found in random motion. It is built through focused action. To discover and pursue purpose, you must protect your mind, your attention, and your time. Every hour wasted on distraction is an hour not invested in building your vision, your skills, or your legacy. Time lost can never be recovered. The world is filled with people who are busy but unfulfilled because they have confused activity with alignment. To move with purpose, you must fight for your focus. Distraction is amplified by indecision. When you are unclear about what truly matters, your mind becomes a playground for every competing demand. You start responding to every notification, every request, and every temptation. When your purpose is clear, every distraction can be evaluated. Does this move me toward what matters, or does it pull me away? Purpose acts as a filter. Distraction seeks to infiltrate. Without clarity of purpose, distraction has free rein. One of the most dangerous forms of distraction is internal. Thoughts of doubt, fear, or past failures can pull you away from what you are called to do. Internal distraction convinces you that you are not ready, the timing is wrong, or that the effort will be wasted. These internal voices often sound reasonable. They sound cautious, responsible, or rational, but they are still distractions if they prevent you from acting on your purpose. Purpose requires courage, and courage requires focus. Distraction also thrives in comfort. When life feels safe, predictable, or easy, the mind drifts toward entertainment, leisure, or trivial concerns. Comfort creates the illusion that you have time, that delay is acceptable, and that deviation is harmless. The truth is that every moment spent distracted is a moment lost in the pursuit of what matters most. Distraction is more dangerous in comfort because it feels harmless while slowly weakening your resolve and diluting your direction. Focus is a choice. To live with purpose, you must choose daily to prioritize what aligns with your calling. This means saying no to what is tempting but irrelevant. It means resisting the allure of business that feels productive but is actually shallow. It means guarding your mind against unnecessary noise and maintaining boundaries around your energy. Every yes to distraction is a no to purpose. Every no to purpose is a slow erosion of the life you were meant to build. Consistency and focus amplifies purpose. Distraction is like water on a fire. It slowly extinguishes momentum. A single day of distraction may seem minor, but repeated over weeks, months, and years compounds into significant loss. Purpose is not maintained by occasional bursts of attention, but by sustained, intentional effort. Daily choices about where to place your focus determine the trajectory of your life. Distraction erodes that trajectory. Focus preserves and amplifies it. Distraction often appears in the form of comparison. You watch what others are doing, measuring yourself against them. Suddenly, your attention shifts away from your own journey. You begin to chase trends, opinions, or external validation instead of the work that truly matters. Purpose cannot survive in comparison because it is unique, individualized, and intentional. Distraction masquerading as inspiration can derail the most disciplined person if it steals focus from the work only they are called to do. Eliminating distraction requires self-awareness. You must understand what diverts your attention most often, what environments weaken your focus, what habits pull you away from your priorities. Awareness allows you to set boundaries, create systems, and design routines that protect your energy. Purpose flourishes in intentional spaces, not in chaotic ones. The mind, like a garden, must be cultivated. Distraction is the weeds that threaten to overtake it. Purpose also requires perseverance. Distraction tempts you with the easy, the immediate, and the entertaining. Purpose requires patience, endurance, and the ability to resist the allure of temporary satisfaction. Distraction avoided strengthens discipline. Every hour spent focused compounds into skill, insight, and momentum. Growth, achievement, fulfillment are the natural outcomes of repeated, focused effort, not scattered energy. Living with purpose demands courage because resisting distraction is not easy. The world is designed to pull you in multiple directions at once. Notifications, media, social pressures, and endless options constantly compete for your attention. It is easier to give in, to drift, to allow momentum to be stolen. Every act of resistance strengthens your focus, sharpens your priorities, and protects the trajectory of your life. Ultimately, distraction is a silent enemy. It does not hit all at once. It creeps, erodes, and delays. Purpose is a force that requires clarity, commitment, and courage. The two are incompatible. You cannot chase both. You cannot allow scattered attention and still expect profound results. Protect your time. Protect your energy. Protect your mind. When you do, purpose is no longer threatened. It becomes a guiding light that directs every decision, every action, and every thought. Distraction is the enemy of purpose because it shifts attention away from what matters most. It delays action, diminishes momentum, and dilutes potential. Purpose is sustained through focus, intentionality, and discipline. It grows not through random motion, busyness, or immediate gratification. Through repeated, consistent, deliberate attention to the things that align with your highest calling. To overcome distraction is to reclaim your life. To focus is to honor your destiny. To live with purpose is to refuse the whispers of what is easy, popular, or comfortable. Purpose demands undivided attention, consistent effort, and courage to resist the pull of the irrelevant. Every distraction avoided, every moment focused, every action aligned builds a life of significance. And when distraction is defeated, purpose flourishes. Focus brings alignment, strength, and clarity. These three pillars are inseparable, and together they form the foundation of a life lived with purpose. Without focus, alignment is random, strength is scattered, and clarity is clouded. Focus is the force that channels energy, intention, and effort toward what truly matters. It is the tool that separates meaningful action from meaningless motion, and it is the bridge between potential and fulfillment. It begins with focus because you cannot align with your purpose if your attention is fragmented. Alignment means that your actions, choices, and priorities are consistent with your goals and values. When your mind is divided, when you are pulled in 100 different directions, alignment becomes impossible. Focus acts like a compass, pointing your energy toward the things that matter most and keeping you on course despite distractions, temptations, and competing demands. When you focus, your efforts stop being random. You stop reacting to every stimulus, every notification, every opinion, and every pressure. Instead, you respond intentionally, guided by a clear sense of direction. Alignment grows out of this intentionality. When focus is constant, it naturally eliminates misaligned actions and relationships. It teaches discernment. You begin to recognize what serves your purpose and what drains your energy. You begin to see that not every opportunity is an assignment, and not every voice deserves a reply. Focus filters out the noise and keeps you tethered to the life you are meant to build. Strength is born from focus because energy, like water, follows direction. When your attention is scattered, your power is dispersed, and you achieve less than your potential. But when you focus, you concentrate your mental, emotional, physical resources, and the results multiply. Strength is not simply brute force. It is the product of sustained, deliberate effort. The focused mind strengthens resolve, sharpens willpower, and builds the resilience needed to overcome challenges. Focus also reinforces discipline. Discipline is not doing the hard things occasionally. Discipline is doing the right things consistently. But consistency requires direction. Focus tells you where to direct your efforts so that repetition produces results, not frustration. Strength grows as you practice, refine, and persist. And focus ensures that your energy is invested in the right areas, building power that is both sustainable and effective. Clarity is the natural outcome of focus and alignment. When your mind is attentive, when your energy is directed, when your actions are aligned with your purpose, confusion fades. Clarity allows you to see what matters most, what decisions require immediate attention, can be delayed or eliminated entirely. Without focus, clarity is impossible. You are lost in a haze of options, possibilities, and competing priorities. Focus acts like a lens, bringing distant goals into sharp view, exposing the steps you must take to reach them. Clarity also provides confidence. When you are clear about your priorities, your decisions become easier and your actions more decisive. You no longer flounder between options or hesitate under uncertainty. You move with intentionality because you understand the path before you. Confusion breeds hesitation. Hesitation breeds inaction, and inaction guarantees stagnation. Focus cuts through uncertainty and illuminates the way forward. Focus demands sacrifice. To gain alignment, strength, and clarity, you must learn to say no. You must resist the allure of distractions that promise immediate satisfaction but steal long-term results. You must decline activities, commitments, and even relationships that are inconsistent with your purpose. Sacrifice is not punishment, it is prioritization. Every no is a yes to something greater. Every boundary you enforce strengthens your alignment and preserves your energy. Focus also trains resilience. Life is full of interruptions, unexpected obstacles, and challenges that threaten to derail your progress. Without focus, these moments of disruption can scatter your attention and diminish your momentum. But when you maintain focus, your vision remains steady. You are able to navigate obstacles with intentionality, adapt without losing direction, and persist despite adversity. Strength is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to remain aligned and disciplined under pressure. Focus makes that possible. Focus sharpens perception. When you concentrate on what truly matters, you begin to notice opportunities that others overlook. You perceive patterns, connections, and possibilities because your mind is no longer cluttered with trivial concerns. Clarity emerges not only from eliminating distraction, but from the enhanced ability to see deeply and accurately. Alignment follows naturally because when you know what is significant, you can match your actions to it consistently. Another aspect of focus is empowerment. A focused person does not live at the mercy of circumstances, opinions, or external noise. Focus cultivates inner authority because it trains the mind to prioritize, filter, and act decisively. Strength grows not from control over others, from control over oneself. When your attention is disciplined, your actions gain momentum, and your influence expands because power follows direction. Focus brings alignment, strength, and clarity also because it cultivates patience. Progress does not always show up in a day or a week, as in results are rarely immediate. When your mind is focused, you can commit to long-term effort without being discouraged by temporary setbacks. Patience allows the compounding effect of consistent effort to take root, turning small steps into monumental outcomes. Pressure seeks instant results. Focus endures. Focus is a practice, not a one-time achievement. It requires repetition, discipline, and vigilance. Distraction is constant, so the ability to maintain focus must be trained. Every day you choose to prioritize what matters, you reinforce alignment. Every day you resist temptation and irrelevant noise, you build strength. Every day you eliminate confusion and direct your attention, you increase clarity. Focus is a muscle that grows stronger with exercise. Ultimately, focus is not just a tool, it is the foundation of a purposeful life. Alignment keeps your actions consistent with your calling. Strength ensures you have the power to endure, execute, and achieve. Clarity allows you to see the path, make decisions confidently, and avoid wasted effort. Without focus, these pillars crumble. With focus, they become unshakable. Focus transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. It turns intention into action, potential into results, and vision into reality. Alignment, strength, clarity are the rewards of a disciplined, focused mind. And once these three are established, they feed each other. Clarity reinforces alignment. Alignment amplifies strength. Strength maintains focus. It becomes a cycle that propels life forward with purpose, consistency, and unstoppable momentum. To live intentionally, to build legacy, and to achieve your highest potential, you must embrace focus as non-negotiable. Protect it, cultivate it, direct it toward what matters. Focus is the engine that powers alignment, the fuel that produces strength, and the lens that creates clarity. Without it, your efforts scatter. With it, your life becomes unstoppable. Focus is the key that unlocks the extraordinary. Decision, not readiness, unlocks transformation. This is one of the most overlooked truths in life. We wait for perfect conditions. We wait until we feel ready. We wait until the timing is right. The circumstances are favorable, or until our confidence is unshakable. But the truth is, readiness is an illusion. Life does not wait for your perfect preparation. Opportunities do not pause until you feel comfortable. Transformation begins the moment you decide to move, act, and commit regardless of whether you feel fully equipped. Decision is the catalyst of change. It is the moment where thought becomes action, intention becomes movement, and potential begins to manifest. You can plan endlessly, gather resources, and strategize for years. Without a decisive step forward, nothing changes. Decision is the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. Readiness, on the other hand, is often a trap. It convinces you that you are not enough, that you need more time, or that circumstances must align perfectly before you can act. This thinking keeps you stagnant, waiting for permission that no one will give but yourself. Transformation does not require perfection, it requires commitment. Many people confuse the absence of fear with readiness. They believe that because they do not feel anxious or uncertain, they are prepared to begin. Fear is natural, and uncertainty is inevitable. Decision is not the absence of these feelings, it is the courage to move forward despite them. Waiting for fear to vanish is waiting forever. The act of deciding, even imperfectly, creates momentum. It triggers action, and action is what produces results. Decision also forces clarity. When you make a choice, you are forced to define what matters, what you are willing to pursue, what you are willing to leave behind. Indecision leaves you fragmented, scattered, and reactive. It keeps you in motion without progress. Decision creates alignment because once you choose, your mind, your energy, and your actions naturally follow the direction of that choice. Readiness without decision is indecision disguised as preparation. Another reason decision unlocks transformation is that it generates courage. Courage is not spontaneous, it is cultivated through action. Each time you decide to step forward despite uncertainty, you grow stronger. You expand your comfort zone. You prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you believed. Transformation begins in these moments of bravery, where action is prioritized over hesitation and movement takes precedence over doubt. Decision also creates accountability. Once you decide, you commit yourself to a path. You cannot blame circumstances or postpone indefinitely. You are responsible for the consequences of that choice. This accountability is liberating because it shifts you from being a passive observer of your life to an active participant. Transformation is always the result of active participation, not passive waiting. Those who wait for readiness often become spectators in their own story. Readiness is a deceptive comfort because it gives the illusion of control. We convince ourselves that if we prepare long enough, learn enough, gather enough resources, then success will be guaranteed. But life rarely works that way. Circumstances are unpredictable. Waiting for perfect alignment often leads to missed opportunities. Decision, on the other hand, embraces uncertainty and acts despite it. Transformation grows in the tension between action and unknown outcomes. Decision also transforms the mind. Once you commit to a course of action, your thinking begins to align with your choice. Your focus sharpens, your energy concentrates, and your priorities reorder themselves. The mind, once may have been clouded by doubt or distraction, becomes a powerful engine for forward momentum. Transformation is as much mental as it is external. The act of deciding reshapes not only what you do, but also who you become. Furthermore, decision encourages learning through experience. You cannot gain wisdom without engagement. Readiness suggests that you must know everything before acting. Decision acknowledges that understanding comes through doing. Each step you take, each action you attempt, each challenge you face produces knowledge, insight, and perspective that you could never acquire by waiting. Transformation is a product of growth in action, and growth only occurs when you step into the process. Decision also cultivates resilience. Every choice comes with challenges, obstacles, and unexpected turns. Those who wait for readiness often avoid challenges temporarily, but they are unprepared when life inevitably presents them. Those who decide learn to adapt, to persist, and to overcome. Transformation requires endurance. It requires showing up even when the path is unclear, when mistakes are made, when fear tempts you to retreat. Decision is the first step in building that endurance. Timing is another reason decision matters more than readiness. Often delivers windows of opportunity that are fleeting. Waiting for perfect preparation may mean missing these windows entirely. Decision seizes the moment, and action amplifies it. Even if you are not fully prepared, the act of starting puts you in motion and allows you to adjust as you go. Transformation is rarely perfect at the outset. It is refined and strengthened through continual action. Readiness delays it. Decision initiates it. Decision also strengthens self-trust. Every time you choose to act, you prove to yourself that you are capable of influencing your own life. You begin to rely on your judgment, your instincts, and your commitment. Waiting for readiness teaches dependence on circumstances, on timing, or on external approval. Decision teaches independence, confidence, and empowerment. Transformation thrives in those who trust themselves enough to start. Finally, decision produces momentum. Transformation rarely occurs in a single leap. It grows gradually, fueled by successive actions. Decision taken creates forward motion. Every step forward increases confidence, skill, and clarity. Waiting for readiness produces inertia. Decision produces progress. Momentum is the engine of transformation, and it begins the moment you commit, even if you feel unprepared. In truth, readiness will rarely come. You will never feel completely equipped, completely confident, or completely safe. Life is designed with uncertainty, challenge, unpredictability. Transformation does not require readiness, it requires action. Decision bypasses the need for perfect conditions because it knows that growth begins where movement begins. You cannot plan yourself into transformation, you must step into it. Decision, not readiness, unlocks transformation. It is the choice to begin, the courage to act, the willingness to commit before the circumstances are perfect. Transformation is born in the gap between fear and action, uncertainty and courage, hesitation and commitment. Those who wait for readiness often wait forever. Those who decide, regardless of how prepared they feel, move forward, grow, become the people they were meant to be. Readiness is optional. Decision is non-negotiable. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a declaration that you will not be governed by hesitation, doubt, or fear. Every action initiated by decision reshapes your present and rewrites your future. Transformation begins the moment you decide. Waiting for readiness delays destiny. Choosing decisively unleashes it.